And don't want to be interrupted. The first thing I want to do is to apologize to the Asian woman who I screenshotted her profile picture and her status where she said she was a person of color and tried to say she wasn't. And you know, the thing is, as a communist, I feel a huge moral responsibility. And a lot of people have been confused, on my intention, because I've talked a lot about how I've given up on having a relationship with a woman. I don't think a woman will ever love me. Talked about that a lot. And how I also have lost faith in success, individually as in myself. Even when I first became a communist, I thought, I could still be successful. I could just be a successful communist, because when I first read Marxism and then read Lenin and studied and understood socialism and socialist movements, I knew that this was the most true cause on the earth presently. And so the thing is that I care more about what other communists and Marxists think about me than I care about any other group of people think about me. Now, how I wanted, I wanted to apologize, and I talked to another female comrade who I appreciate, and she told me what I did was creepy and weird and wrong, and all this, and I told her about how, like, I believe all of us communists, we're all trying to save the world together, that's our point, and like, I'm willing to accept criticism because, I care what the communists think about me, and I want to keep educating myself and be a good person. And so I appreciate her being honest, and telling me that I'm wrong. And the thing about us communists, a lot of communist movements, we engage in a practice called self-criticism. Okay, that's where if we're serious about being communists, we have to be correct, in our understanding of people, and our understanding of the social life, the different peoples, and different levels of oppression, and how we talk to people, and stuff like that. So self-criticism is an essential part of being a communist, because we always, we understand that we live in a dialectical world. There's always opposing forces, and those forces bring about change. So it's not only in the world, but also within ourselves. And the only constant concept is change. Change is inevitable. Nothing is dogmatic and static. So, we have to recognize that process within ourselves as well. And, to be more sincere in my apology and try to process it more and do so in a way publicly, so people can criticize me on my own or whatever. I wanted to make this video. The first part, I just wanted to explain, what exactly happened and my thought process at the time. But that doesn't mean that I'm trying to justify what I did. I'm just explaining myself, and what I was feeling in the moment. And then I want to talk more about the reactions I got and the criticism that, I accepted And what I learned from this, and my outlook going forward, on the topic. So this so the backstory to all this was that why it really affected me personally, and I made that post, was because about 2 or 3 years ago, I said I wasn't white. And a lot of these white communists, and even some people of color communists, right? But mostly white people, talk about, oh no, you're white and all this. And the thing is, it was really hard for me to accept because, I'm Sicilian. I'm also Spanish and Irish, but I'm half Italian. I'm Italian and Sicilian, but my mother's mother is brown as dirt. I swear to God. I'll post a picture afterwards if y'all need me to. And the thing is, the struggle that my family went through in the past 100 years of living here has been hard. And when we first arrived here, we were seen as dirty immigrants and people of color and not white. Now, I do acknowledge the broader sociological shift where more people from different backgrounds have over the decades been incorporated into the public consciousness of view of what is white. And there's a lot of Italians who just see themselves as white. And, there's a lot of Italians who are really white. But my family was not white. We were dark Sicilian Italians. And the thing is, this experience of whiteness is not one that I really experienced. I didn't experience a privileged life from whiteness. I even had people where I grew up in the Southeast, some of the racist white country people there knew I wasn't one of them. They would say it, you're not from around here, and all this. But, I eventually accepted it because I cared what the communists thought and I cared about their criticism. And I understood that in certain instances, I probably could benefit from white privilege. Now, I haven't really much in my life. My life has been very hard, but I acknowledge that in certain situations, a black person in my situation might have it harder. Even where I grew up, going to jail in North Carolina, it's, black people are only about 35% of the population, but they are fucking 80 to 90% of the people in the jail. When you go to jail, you go on the block, it's almost all black people, 20, 30 black people, maybe 2 or 3 white people, maybe a few more sometimes, but it's, you can just see the white supremacist, racist superstructure. And, but like I said, I've been to jail, my life hasn't lived in poverty. And also, I listen to brown Asians, I've listened to brown Asians talk about the difference in even the way that they're treated between white and brown Asians. There was a Filipino Marxist, brown Asian, and this goes in the deep critical race theory that we're currently understanding, trying to process. But she was a Filipino Asian, and she's talking about the different prejudices against Asians of color and white Asians, and she's calling them white Asians. And it's actually, I've actually seen videos where there's statistics that prove that white Asians are systematically treated better than brown Asians. So, the thing was, I felt really indignant because when I dared to say I wasn't white a few years ago, because of my Sicilian ancestry, which is, only a few generations away. All of my family came to America around the time of World War I, about 100 years ago. Okay, it's documented. It's literally on Ancestry.com. You can go and look at my family tree. It's recorded. My great-great-grandfather was born in Sicily in like the 1880s or something like that, and he died in New York on the 1930s. And my mother's mother, my nonna, that's what we call her, it means grandma in Italian, she's brown as dirt. I swear to God, I'll post a picture of her. So the thing is, whenever I try to talk about my history, as an individual, the impression that my family and even I have faced growing up an Italian New Yorker in the fucking racist South. The thing was that these people who you could call the race police or the color police, basically a nickname for them, mostly white people, came after me to check my privilege, I guess, and eventually I accepted it. Okay, and I've always acknowledged, even when I said I wasn't white, I discovered this other critical race theory concept of white passing, right? It's people who their backgrounds are not the white Anglo-Saxon Europeans. People like us Mediterraneans were treated differently from other Europeans. And I wouldn't consider Sicily European. I mean, Sicilians have a lot of African DNA. Okay, it's an island in between Europe and Africa. Okay, it's not attached to mainland Europe. It's an island in between Europe and Africa. And us Sicilians were called the N-word Italians when we first came here. And I just felt really indignant over the fact that these color police told me I had to deny my history and not be able to express my experience and my family's experience dealing with racism in the United States, because whether you want to try to erase the fact or not, historically us Sicilians and Italians and even the Irish part of me was treated differently, and there was a systematic racism against us, and allowing people to express that and recognizing that, I think will bring people more together than trying to force us to accept this label white, as if we're the same white people that are pale, blonde hair and blue-eyed who came over here and genocided the natives and then enslaved a bunch of black people to grow their white economy. No, my people were not part of any of that. And about 100 years ago, we came here and we were seen as dirty immigrants of color. And that's why I felt so indignant, because I've seen brown Asians talk about how there are white Asians, and there is a difference, and there's statistics showing how they're treated differently than brown Asians. There's and some brown Asians even will say that they might as well be part of the white people. They're white, they're pale as fuck. But at the end of the day, the mature view is to understand that it's not my place, right? And just because somebody tried to play the race police or color police on me and told me I wasn't allowed to express my disassociation with this whiteness that people label me as, based on my family's history and my real experience and poverty, oppression, and struggle. I grew up around in a town that had white families living in suburbia with long histories, who came over here fucking hundreds of years ago, who have family trees that extend 300 years or more in the American, and even they can trace their history back to the American colonies, and they live in the big suburbs with big houses, but I wasn't one of them. No, on my street growing up, I was the only one that was seen as white. I mean, there were a few other white people, but it was mostly people of color I grew up around. All right, and my experience was poverty and oppression. Okay, even growing up trying to get a job, going to jail, you know. So, you know, at the end of the day, I understand it's not right for me, whether I believe I'm white or not, someone who's definitely at least white passing, and somebody who definitely could, in certain instances, benefit from white privilege, from having a little bit fairer skin. So, you know, that is a sociological factor, though, not a race, you know, and it's a generalization that a lot of people feel indignant about. But it's not my place to be the race police or color police, and I don't think it's other people's place to be the color police and try to tell me that I'm not allowed to express the fact that I don't resonate with this whiteness, that I don't see myself as white based on my real family history of oppression and racism against my family from all different lines in this country. And there's poverty, and that's the thing about systematic racist oppression. You know, you can have a person like me, you know, and I'm more white passing. I might benefit through white privilege, but I'll tell you honestly, you know, I was treated differently by some white people in the South. They did realize I wasn't one of them, that I didn't come from the same, excuse my language, cousin fucking circle 300 years ago as they did. Okay, and the thing about systematic racist oppression, generational oppression, is that you can have someone like me that people consider white, but because of my family history of color and racist oppression in this country, I grew up in poverty because my family was not white, because my family was hardworking immigrants of color who worked in factories. They didn't rise. They stayed in the poor neighborhoods. They didn't have the great American dream. They didn't become rich because they didn't have the economic base of wealth that real white people have, that the real colonizer have, and the descendants of the colonizers. So that's the thing, is that, you know, even now you have white Mexicans, right? In 100 years, married a few times, you know, or even now, you can have white Mexicans and people consider them white, but they don't know what their brown parents had to go through, and what their brown parents went through as exploited poor workers of color, how that affected generations down the line. So even though I'm lighter skinned than my grandmother, who's brown as the dirt on the ground, I swear to God, I'll upload a picture. That systemic racism affects generations down the line. The real pure white people, English people and all that, who came over and colonized, their descendants are doing great most of the time. Now, I'm not going to say there's not outliers, but that's what you have to understand about systematic generational oppression. Is that generations down the line, over mixing with other people, you're going to have people that appear more white, but they're still struggling and oppressed from that historic generational position that their family members, being not white, put them in. And if I don't care what any of you say. You know, you can call me white, and we can agree to disagree. I can acknowledge I might benefit from white privilege in a few scenarios, and some of society might see me as white. But I'll tell you, I don't care what nobody says. My grandmother, my Nonna, my Sicilian grandmother, she is not white. 100%. I'll upload a picture after this video is over. Go to the community tab on my profile. I'll upload a picture. Even to this day, she's still alive. She's brown as fuck. Okay? She's literally brown. She's not white. She's not any shade of white. But she married an Irishman. Okay? But the Irish, even though they're white, they went through a lot of oppression in this country. Okay? And a lot of Sicilian and Irish people mixed in New York, and a lot of Sicilian, a lot of Italians and Irish mixed in New York. Okay, so that's why you have people like me. My mother, she's Italian and Irish, and she's a little darker than me. You know, my father's Spanish and Italian, but he's more pale. I don't think he's Sicilian. Somewhere else in Italy, but it's a generational thing, and it's not right for me to be trying to play the color police, but I don't think it's right for other people to try to play the color police either towards me. You know, like the thing was that these people didn't give me a chance to explain all this, didn't hear me out. Years ago, all these online communists I interact with just barraged me with insults and making fun of me, mocking me for daring to say I wasn't white. And then I see brown Asians saying that white Asians are white. So I'm like, okay, you know, everybody's praising her, and they played the color police on me, so I was like, I'm gonna play the color police on her. You know, I check your privilege, white Asian. Have you listened to brown Asians? But that was not right of me to do. It's not my place to do that. You know, if a brown Asian, you know, felt that way, they would have the right to do that. But I don't have the right to do that. So I apologize for that. And like I said, me explaining all this is not excusing my actions. It's just trying to explain where I'm coming from. And if you have a problem with what I say, you know, and you have a reasonable response, you can tell me in the comments. All right. Just, you know, we don't have to trash talk each other. We don't have to bully each other. We don't have to mock each other. Even if we believe they're totally ignorant. You know, that's what Huey Newton said. No matter how seemingly bourgeois, we have to continue to compassionately try to explain to each other, because that's our job. That's our job as Marxists. That's our job as communists. And especially someone like me, who I really do have I really do have an intention of being a good Marxist, because what I wanted to say also in this video is that, you know, I said earlier, and y'all, people who watch my lives a lot will know I've said this a lot. You know, like I've lost any faith or hope that I'll have a relationship with a woman and get married or all that or whatever. I've lost any faith or hope that I'm gonna find success in this life. You know, like financial success or career success. You know, and so when I take all that away, what's left? You know, when I take all that desire for the fruit of my actions away, because that's actually a spiritual thing that I've been, you know, coming to for many years. That's taught in the Bhagavad Gita, is not attachment to the fruits of your actions. And you know, I know there's a lot of communists and Marxists are atheists, but there's a lot of communists and Marxists who are also people of faith who believe in a higher power. You know, and so my belief in a higher power is never a dogmatic or superstitious one, and it's never something that replaces any material science. It only serves as a moral basis, a moral groundwork, a moral foundation for my character in the personal belief that I keep for myself, that I don't try to put on anybody else, that there is a higher power that is watching us and that does judge us. And you know, when I take all of this expectation or hope of having this, you know, good life as a human, as a regular male human, of finding a wife and getting married and having a good career to provide and have a family, whatever. When I take all that away, and I just look at what's left, and this I believe partially does come from my upbringing. As I've said a lot, from the time I was like 6 or 7 to 14 or so, I went to church every Sunday or Wednesday. And no, my parents did not. There was one time because the preacher agreed to marry them if they went to church, but then they stopped going after a year or two. And I'll tell you why. It's pretty funny. It's because they watched the Da Vinci Code and they were excited. They wanted to tell the preacher about it. But on that same service where they were going to tell it to about him after church, he preached about how the Da Vinci Code is the work of the devil. And that was, one of the things I remember is hearing them say that made them stop going or whatever. But, they only went for maybe a year or two. Maybe I'm being too generous, maybe or so. But after that, the church bus would come around, And where I grew up, they have church buses and vans, just like a school bus. There's actually school buses, but they're church buses. And they go around the neighborhood and pick up any of the kids that want to go to church. They'll stop by on Saturday. They'll go to all the neighborhoods, usually the poor neighborhoods like I lived in. And they would pass out candy and talk to the parents and say, look, we can pick up your kid for church if you want. And, I rode that bus and van for many years, And so I think it's partially from my upbringing, but whenever I take all this expectation of wanting to have this good life for myself, then I see, I just see me in relation to God. And you could also see it as me in relation to the rest of the universe and the rest of life. I believe we have a responsibility, as living beings with consciousness, we have a responsibility to contribute to the world to make it better. And that's what God judges us on. And that's why I became a communist, because when I read Marxism and I studied socialism and socialist revolutions and the truth of it, then I knew that if I want to serve God with my life, this is the best way to do it through scientific socialism, by rejecting all dogmaticism. And so when I take any expectation for anything from myself away, I just see it as, how can I serve God? How can I serve this universe? How can I serve this life? As Marx said, it's not just our responsibility to study the world and interpret the world, but to change it, And so, also I messaged that woman before I made the post complaining that all those people, were saying, you go girl, and, applauding her for talking about being a person of color when I felt she was a white Asian, as the brown Asians had said. But, before that, and she posted this too, so I want to apologize for this as too, because a lot of people did say it was creepy, right? And so, yeah, I accept that, and I accept that criticism, and, I had to understand that I didn't think it was creepy, me telling her that I found her more attractive because she was Asian. And regardless of if anyone believes me or not, I swear it was not an attempt at flirting. I swear it really wasn't, because this wasn't too long ago, and I was already in this headspace where, I don't think a woman's ever gonna love me, so, maybe subconsciously, but consciously, I was not thinking about it like that. Okay, so the thing is I thought about not saying the first part, but to be fully in self-criticism, I just want to lay it all out and try to explain myself, and then still get to the part where I recognize the criticism and talk about how I'm gonna be going forward and my process and going forward. Okay. That are programmed into them as if it's a dogma. Like, the thing about critical race theory in its current state is that a lot of people take it dogmatically. Okay, and they're unwilling to incorporate or accept, a broader analysis, or, a critical race theory analysis that incorporates people like me who are white passing, who do have generational struggle, even racial oppression in the generations that led up to them, that put them in this position. And there's a lot of people like that. And what I wanted to say earlier, but I forgot to, was that, I think this is a big part of why you have these, what they call them, MAGA communists. And I've never been associated with them, even though some of my enemies, have tried to tell me, have tried to label me, have tried to spread lies that I ever was. There's no, I guarantee you, nothing out there. Never been associated with none of them. Never. I've never believed in nationalism for the United States. Okay, I've never been a nationalist, and but I have after I discovered who they were or whatever, I have listened to other people criticize them, and I have listen to them, try to see what they're saying and why they feel this way. And I think that there's a YouTuber called FD Signifier. There's a YouTuber called FD Signifier. He's a black YouTuber, leftist in Atlanta, and he made a video about this white male complex, right? I think he made a few videos about it, but I think one of the videos, he was talking about the Joker. I never seen that movie, anyways, but all these other male role models in society, these white male role models, and he talked about how these white men have been told by media and this culture that they deserve the world, that they deserve a woman, that they deserve success, they're entitled to success. As long as they work for it, they put in the time and the energy, but that's not the reality for all these white men. So that's what creates the incel culture and the Sigma, whatever, all these types of men who are misogynist and all this, and also nationalists. I believe this patriotic socialism, as they call it, is part of that. And what FD Signifier says is because people aren't, people generally don't really talk about the position of a white man, and especially a poor white person, because they're so caught up in a critical race theory that doesn't really account for the oppression of white people and people who are seen as white, who are white passing. So, he explains some things, and I just think as communists, we would have a lot more of this group of people, which is a lot of people in the United States, if we could at least hear some people out. Not all of us fit into one category. just because we're all seen as white men, we have very different backgrounds. A lot of us, there's a lot of different people who are white, who are from all over the world, who are from different places and have different histories and different struggles. So, within that, it's our job to, as white people, whether we're white passing, whether our grandmas were brown or not, or whether we're the descendants of colonizers or not, which I'm not, but there's a lot of white people who are. We have a responsibility to learn about the struggle of BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. But within that, people are not going to feel dignified and respected if they're not also able to share the history and struggle of their ancestors and where they came from, So, it's just, I feel like a lot of people feel like we don't have a right to speak about this as white men, but I think we all have a right to express ourselves and our history, and people who don't want to listen, that's fine. But I don't think you should attack someone for not resonating with the white and disassociating from this concept of whiteness, because I think the critical race theory in its current state, that whether it's written in the critical race theory manifesto, which I don't think there's not one manifesto, of course, but whether it's officially written in stone or not, a lot of the followers of this theory are very antagonistic towards anyone they see as white that's not conforming to their idea of who white people are and what white includes. So I think there would be a lot more understanding and connection and empathy and sharing of ideas and a more mutual sense of struggle. I really believe there would be a more mutual sense of struggle if we acknowledge the struggle and oppression of different kinds of white people in this critical race theory, and acknowledge that there are certain white people who have benefited from slavery and colonization, and there are a lot of white people that have not, and that their family wasn't even here. My family came here 100 years ago. We've been poor workers the whole time. So it's a really sincere effort to be a godly person, and because I believe that if I take away any expectations that I have for life, or anything like that, then and I just look at myself, then I have a feeling of wanting to do the right thing and to contribute towards sociological development. And that's the thing. All Marxists are social scientists. So whenever I'm talking to somebody about this kind of stuff, it's all social science. Where every single Marxist is a sociologist. Okay, and we're better than sociologists because we don't just try to interpret and explain the world. We actively try to change it. We understand there's a dialectical nature, meaning that there's always forces, everything's always in a process of becoming. There's forces in the natural world and in society that work against each other and struggle against each other until it forms something new. So yeah, I guess that's about it. I try to say what I've learned. I feel like I've explained everything, and I'm not trying to say that I'm on my high horse here. Okay, whenever I'm explaining, even if I get passionate about trying to understand different types of white people to develop critical race theory, I'm not trying to be demanding. I'm not trying to be antagonistic, and I'm not against critical race theory. Okay, I understand critical race theory. I just think that there's certain things that it hasn't taken into account, and it's just me really, as an intellectual, as a Marxist, as a sociologist, a social scientist. It's me proposing an idea which I truly believe at the bottom of my heart can really help bring us together more. There's a lot of people who, like a lot of the other white people who aren't the descendants of colonizers, who have a history of immigrants, even immigrants of color, who are now seen as white. A lot of these people don't accept the critical race theory because maybe they're too they feel like maybe they don't have enough mental energy to understand it's not a dogma. Maybe they don't have the mental energy to realize that critical race theory isn't wrong. It's just not a dogma, and we can develop it further. Um, but I consider myself a very smart man, and I understand the concept of white privilege. I understand the fact that people of fairer skin are statistically treated better. Um, but I also understand that there is, generational wealth and generational poverty and generational oppression that can affect me, even though I'm seen as white, because my family came here as brown people and some of them as Irish people. So, yeah, I guess that's about it.